build it in consciousness, it will come. Now I have a question for you this morning. What would you do if you sat on a tack? What would you do if you sat on a tack? Would you complain about the tack? Would you ignore the tack? Would you resent the tack? Would you resent the person that put the tack in the chair? Would you resent yourself for sitting down on the tack? Or would you get up and remove the tack? How many people will remove the tack? Now, you know, maybe one or two that might be your thing. I'm not going to. However, most of us will remove the tack. And the question is, why will we remove the tack? It hurts, it brings about pain, but more importantly, we also know that we have the power to remove the tack. We have the power, right, to remove the tack. But what about those other conditions and circumstances, the situations in our lives that so oftentimes we complain about them, we try to ignore them, we sometimes expect them to go away. That was one of the things I forgot, to expect the tack to go away. We expect those things to go away. We resent the people around us that we feel are creating the situation and the circumstances. We resent ourselves. You know what I'm talking about. In relationships, it could be romantic relationships, family relationships, business, school relationships, just relationships in general don't go right. Money is funny and change is strange. We complain, we resent, we expect it to go away, we ignore all of those things. We do all of that because we don't recognize and realize that just as we have the power that when the tack is getting us in the backside to remove it, these other things in our lives, we also have the power to do something about it. Now, it's important to understand that while we like to be able to change situations and circumstances, that it's not always that we do that, because where we have the real control is not over the situation and circumstances, but it's over our mind, our consciousness. And so it's important that we've already been building toward this, because if we remember 2 months ago, where we helped ourselves to remember the fact that you and I are, when we talk about double thinking, you and I are spiritual beings, divine beings having a human experience. We are God in expression. So that's how we first of all recognize that we have the power. Then last month, we spent time understanding that we are not our thoughts. We are not our stories. We are capable of stepping outside of the thinker that is always thinking, that is interpreting things, that will tell us, well, you can't change your condition, you can't change this or that, and that will try to keep us stuck in those things. We spent time recognizing and realizing that that was not who we are. Again, going back to the idea and to the understanding that we indeed are divine centers of being. We are God in expression. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So the thing of it is to first of all recognize that we have the power. That when things are not going right in our life, when things are not the way we wish them to be, when things are not where we would like them to be, we recognize we have the power to do something about them. We have the power. We first of all recognize that and realize that if we change our consciousness, we can change our lives. We can change what's happening, because first of all, it's not what happens to us that is the issue, but it's how we respond to what happens to to us. You can have two people that are in the same situation. Both people lose their jobs, and one person is devastated and is somehow not able to function or do anything else, and another person says, okay, here I am, I'm not my job. I already am the expression of the divine creator, and I'll move on. And another job, and another situation, another opportunity presents itself, because again, it's not what happens to us, but how we respond. It's how we see it. It's how we frame it. And when we understand that, when we get into that mode of thinking and that consciousness, then we understand that we have the power. The second part of that is that when we start talking about if we allow our consciousness, building it in our consciousness, that it will come, we also have to understand something that Ernest Holmes calls the mental equivalent, and Thomas Troward calls the spiritual prototype. And that's being able to hold something in mind, to see it not how it is, but how we want it to be. Think about that for a moment. People that have created things and things that we have now that are part of our lives that we take for granted, and all of those things, it started out as a thought in someone's mind. And as they held that thought in mind, and then they gathered the material things that were necessary and all of that, and it all came together to create that. The chairs that you were sitting on started out as an idea in someone's mind. And after that idea started in their mind, and then they did something, and then it came on paper, and it got designed, and then the materials that were there came together and all of that, and now you're sitting there. This building is the same thing. You are the same thing. That we have to understand that when we have the spiritual prototype, when we understand we have the mental equivalent, we see it before it even comes into fruition. And we hold on to that seed. And we hold on to that vision. And we hold on and we live from that knowing. As Neville calls it, we feel it real. And we allow ourselves to see it and day in and day out to experience it and to live from that place. And just as our mind, goes off and it gets us thinking, bad things about people or worried about things and all of that, we can take the creative part of that and use it for our own well-being and see the way we wish to be. See the relationship rather than the way it is and it's all, see how we would like for it to be. See the work situation where it's all, see how we would like for it to be, and hold that thought in consciousness. And as we hold that thought in consciousness and have that mental equivalent, then the laws of the universe begin to act, and we learn how to allow it. And we'll be talking about how we allow it later on in the month, but we allow ourselves to do that. I was reading a story by an author named Jane Claypool. She's a religious science and New Thought author, but before all of that really came to fruition, way back in 1965, she became widowed for the second time. And she sat in the attorney's office, and the attorney was trying to work with her to settle her affairs. And he said, "I've got some good news for you." Said, "Your husband left you a sizable sum of money. He, invested in stocks and everything, and you now have $260,000. You'll never have to work again." Remember, this is 1965. He said, "You'll never have to work again." She said, "My husband didn't leave me no $260,000. There's no way that happened. I know everything there is to know about my husband." She said, he said, "Well, man, sometimes husbands would keep things from their wives and maybe wouldn't share all of their activities and their business with them and all of that. And so, you should feel fortunate." She said, "Look, I'm a school teacher. I made $10,000 a year. My husband made $25,000. We spent our money on trips and we did all of that. There's no way that, I knew he did some investing, but I'm pretty sure that he lost everything. I can't see that. And he said, well, they're Canadian stocks. And when you do the exchange rate and everything, it comes out to $260,000. So she said, well, okay. And he said, I've got to do some other things, and after a while, you'll be able to have the money. And she said, well, okay. And she went home, and she had just started going to a religious science church, and she said she really didn't completely believe the teachings and all of that. She was still trying to figure all this stuff out, all the funny language and terms and stuff like that, and how people saw things differently, but and so she started to do some of that. She knew that she could think about things and how it had an influence on how things happen, but she still wasn't quite sure. And then one day she said, well, okay, let's say I do have this money. What would I do? I said, well, I like teaching, but I really always wanted to write. And my daughter likes the neighborhood that we live in, and maybe I'll get a house in the neighborhood so she can stay in the school that she was in, and I want to travel. Yeah, I'll do that. So she started thinking about that, what her life would be. And she said that almost a month to the day, exactly a month to the day, that she first went in to talk to the lawyer, she got a letter from him. The letter said, really sorry to tell you this, but I got confused, and the exchange rate turned out to be, rather than you having $260,000, it's $2,600. She said, well, I knew that. I knew my husband shared things with me. He wanted to talk about the state of our marriage and all of that, but I understood everything. I'm glad to know that. But she said, all these plans that I had to be a writer, to get a house, to travel, all of those things, she said, I'll do it anyway. Because I've already seen it in my mind. I've already held the vision for those 30 days that it would manifest. And she said that what happened is that she took the insurance money that she got and she put a down payment on the house. She used some more money so that she and her daughter and her mother could travel for 10 days in Europe. And then she used the rest of the money, or some more of the money, to be able to quit her job as a teacher and for a year go to school, go to college to study, to be a writer, take classes and courses and all of that. And she said that before the money ran out, she'd already published one book. And she'd already published several articles in another publication. She went on to publish over 80 titles for teens. And she went on to have this fabulous life as a writer and a teacher and all of those things. And she says that the important thing that we have to remember is we first hold the vision, whatever it is that we wish to have manifest. If we build it in consciousness, it will come. So even though the outside conditions changed, where she thought it was $260,000 and it went down to $2,600, didn't matter anymore, because she had built it in mind. And things held in mind reproduce after their kind. If we build it in consciousness, if we hold the vision, if we know who we are, if we realize who we are, and we activate that presence and that power that is in us, and if we just remember to let it go, let it be, let it manifest, allow it to happen. We don't have to make it happen. We make it welcome. We sang it this morning. Relax. Let go. Release. And surrender.